Kim Hae-won's hands trembled slightly as she checked her equipment. The massive alien vessel loomed around her, its corridors pulsing with an eerie biomechanical rhythm. Her combat suit, a marvel of human engineering, blended seamlessly with the surrounding metallic surfaces, its adaptive camouflage technology making her almost invisible. The mission had started 3 standard Earth cycles ago. Her team of 6 elite reconnaissance specialists had been selected for this impossible task: infiltrate the central command structure of the Outer Rim alien civilization. Now, she was the only one left alive. Her breath came in controlled patterns, each exhale carefully measured to minimize sound detection. The alien technology was sensitive, capable of detecting even the slightest biological disturbance. She remembered her training. Humans were considered unpredictable, chaotic beings by most advanced galactic civilizations. That unpredictability would be her greatest weapon. A distant mechanical hum echoed through the corridor. Hae-won pressed herself against a curved wall, its surface shifting and breathing like living tissue. Her fingers traced the quantum disruptor, attached to her belt, a last resort weapon that could potentially disable entire communication networks. The corridor ahead split into 3 different pathways. Each looked identical, smooth, translucent surfaces that seemed to breathe and pulse with an internal energy. No markings, no clear indicators of direction. This was intentional, a design meant to confuse and disorient intruders. She activated her neural interface, a small device embedded behind her right ear. The tiny computer began analyzing molecular structures, mapping potential routes, calculating probabilities of detection. Humans had always been good at turning complex problems into solvable equations. Her team had known the risks. 6 months of preparation, months of studying alien communication patterns, biological structures, and technological systems. They had trained in simulated environments that mimicked the alien vessel's potential architecture. Now all that training came down to her survival. A sudden movement caught her attention. Something shifted in the peripheral vision of her enhanced optical sensors. Not large, but definitely organic. Probably a reconnaissance drone or a biological monitoring unit. She remained perfectly still, her suit's thermal signature dropping to match the surrounding environment. The vessel felt alive, not just mechanically alive, but sentient. Every surface seemed to breathe, to listen, to react. Hae-won understood that this wasn't just a ship. It was a living organism, with complex systems that functioned like organs in a massive body. Her mission parameters were clear: gather intelligence, locate the central command center, and if possible, retrieve critical data about the alien civilization's strategic capabilities. Failure was not an option. Humanity's future might depend on the information she could extract. The quantum disruptor hummed softly against her hip. One wrong move could trigger a catastrophic response from the ship's defense mechanisms. She had seen what happened to her teammates. Rapid molecular disintegration that left nothing behind, not even dust. Memories of her training flashed through her mind. The rigorous psychological conditioning, the endless simulations, the lectures about maintaining composure in impossible situations. They had prepared her for this moment, for being alone in the most hostile environment imaginable. Her suit's internal systems began mapping the corridor's molecular composition. Each step was calculated, each movement precise. She moved like water, fluid, adaptive, without leaving any trace of her presence. Something watched her. She couldn't see it, couldn't hear it, but she could feel the presence. The ship was aware of her, studying her, trying to understand this small human intruder who had managed to penetrate its defenses. Hae-won took another careful step forward. The mission had only just begun, and survival was her only priority. Behind her, the corridor seemed to breathe and shift, erasing any evidence of her passage. The alien vessel continued its eternal journey through the vast, silent darkness of space, carrying its unexpected human passenger deeper into its mysterious heart. The vessel's internal systems began to react, sensing the intrusion. Invisible waves of energy swept through the corridors, probing, searching, attempting to understand the foreign entity that had breached its defenses. Kim Hae-won felt the pressure building around her. Not physical pressure, but a mental weight that threatened to crush her consciousness. Her neural interface flickered, warning signals dancing across her optical display. The ship was trying to read her to understand her, but humans were different. Where most species had predictable thought patterns, human minds were chaotic, unpredictable, almost impossible to categorize. A soft humming began, rising from the walls themselves. It wasn't sound in the traditional sense, but a vibration that penetrated deeper than hearing. It was a language of sorts, a communication method designed to break down mental barriers, to probe the intruder's thoughts. Hae-won closed her eyes. Her training had prepared her for this moment. Mental resilience wasn't just about blocking signals, but about creating a mental landscape so complex, so layered, that any external probe would become lost in its complexity. She thought of her childhood in Seoul, memories of street markets, the smell of street food, the sound of her grandmother's laughter. Each memory was a fortress, a complex structure with multiple layers of meaning. The alien probes crashed against these memories like waves against rocks. The vessel's consciousness was different from anything humans had encountered. It wasn't a simple computer system, but a living, thinking entity. Each corridor was a neural pathway, each wall a potential thought. And now, it was trying to understand her. Sudden images flooded her mind. Alien landscapes, strange geometrical patterns, communication systems that defied human understanding. The ship was showing her something, attempting to communicate or perhaps to overwhelm her mental defenses. Her quantum disruptor hummed softly. It was more than a weapon. It was a potential key to breaking the ship's communication network. But using it too early could trigger a catastrophic defensive response. The mental pressure increased. Waves of alien thoughts crashed against her consciousness. Most humans would have been crushed, their minds broken by the intense psychological assault. But Hae-won was different. Her mind was a labyrinth, each thought a complex puzzle that resisted simple categorization. She began to understand something remarkable. The ship wasn't just trying to destroy her, it was trying to understand her. Humans were an anomaly in the galactic ecosystem, a species that didn't follow expected patterns of behavior or thought. Her breath remained steady. Each inhale was a calculation, each exhale a deliberate act of mental resistance. The ship's consciousness continued its probing, finding nothing but layers of complex, interconnected memories and thoughts. Memories of her military training surfaced, hours of psychological conditioning, techniques designed to resist mental manipulation. She had been trained to turn her mind into a weapon, to make her thoughts a maze that would confuse and disorient any external probe. The corridor around her shifted. Walls seemed to breathe, to move, to react to her presence. It was alive in a way that defied human understanding. Not organic, not mechanical, but something in between. Another wave of mental energy crashed against her consciousness. This time she pushed back, not with force, but with complexity. Memories of her first space mission, the taste of coffee on a cold morning, the sound of rain against a window, each thought a shield, each memory a defensive wall. The ship's consciousness hesitated. For the first time, it encountered a mind it couldn't immediately categorize or understand. Humans were supposed to be simple, predictable, but Hae-won was anything but simple. Her neural interface detected something interesting. The ship's communication systems were becoming confused, struggling to process the complexity of her mental landscape. Where most species would have been broken, she was pushing back, creating a psychological stalemate. The mission continued, one step at a time, one thought at a time. Hae-won moved deeper into the alien vessel's heart, her mind a fortress that refused to be breached. The chamber pulsed with an otherworldly energy. Massive biological structures stretched in impossible, geometric patterns, creating a space that defied human understanding. Kim Hae-won stepped forward, her combat suit sensors working overtime to process the alien environment. At the center of the chamber sat the Queen. She wasn't a creature in the traditional sense. but a living network of interconnected biological systems. Tentacle-like structures moved slowly, each one a communication pathway, each movement a complex thought process. The Queen's consciousness touched Heywan's mind first. It wasn't an attack but a probing, a delicate exploration of her mental landscape. Waves of alien thoughts crashed against her mental defenses, seeking any weakness, any point of entry. Heywan stood perfectly still. Her training had prepared her for this moment, a direct confrontation with an intelligence far beyond human comprehension. The quantum disruptor on her belt hummed softly, a potential weapon of last resort. The chamber itself seemed alive. Walls breathed and shifted, biological systems moving like living muscles. Each surface was a potential sensor, each movement a complex communication signal. The Queen watched, studied, analyzed. Communication happened on multiple levels, not just through sound or visual signals, but through complex energy patterns that danced between biological systems. The Queen was trying to understand this small human intruder who had penetrated her most sacred space. Heywan's neural interface began to translate fragments of the alien communication. Not words, but complex emotional and conceptual impressions. The Queen saw humans as chaotic, unpredictable, a species that didn't follow expected patterns of behavior or thought. A sudden mental pressure threatened to crush her consciousness. The Queen's full mental capacity began to focus entirely on Heywan. Most beings would have been destroyed instantly, their minds shattered by the intense psychological assault. But Heywan was different. Her mind was a complex maze, each thought a defensive mechanism, each memory a potential shield. She pushed back against the mental invasion, not with force but with complexity. Memories flooded her consciousness. Her first space mission, the taste of coffee on a cold morning, the sound of her grandmother's voice. Each memory became a weapon, each thought a complex defensive structure that confused the alien intelligence. The Queen hesitated. For the first time, she encountered a mind she couldn't immediately understand or categorize. Humans were supposed to be simple, predictable, but Heywan was anything but simple. Biological structures around the chamber began to move more aggressively. Massive tendrils of living tissue shifted, creating defensive patterns. The Queen was preparing for a more direct confrontation. Heywan's quantum disruptor began to charge. One wrong move could trigger a catastrophic response from the ship's defense mechanisms. She understood that this was more than a mission. This was a first contact scenario that could determine humanity's future. The mental pressure increased. Waves of alien thoughts crashed against her consciousness with increasing intensity. Most humans would have been crushed, their minds broken by the psychological assault. But she remained standing. Each breath was a calculation, each thought a deliberate act of resistance. The Queen's consciousness continued its probing, finding nothing but layers of complex, interconnected memories and thoughts. Something changed in the chamber. The Queen's approach shifted from invasion to something more complex. She was no longer trying to destroy Heywan, but to understand her. Humans were an anomaly in the galactic ecosystem, a species that didn't follow expected patterns. The quantum disruptor on her belt reached full charge, a weapon that could potentially disable entire communication networks now ready to be used if necessary. But Heywan knew that using it would be a last resort. Massive biological structures continued to move around her. The chamber breathed thought, existed in a way that defied human understanding. Not organic, not mechanical, but something completely alien. The confrontation continued. One mind against another, human complexity against alien intelligence, neither willing to submit, neither able to fully understand the other. Heywan took another step forward. The mission was far from over. The quantum disruptor hummed with a dangerous energy. Kim Heywan understood that each movement could trigger a catastrophic response from the alien civilization's central network. Her fingers moved carefully, calculating the precise moment of intervention. The hive's communication system was complex. Millions of interconnected biological pathways created a network more sophisticated than any human computer system. Each pathway was a communication channel, each signal a potential lifeline for the entire alien civilization. Her neural interface began mapping the complex communication structures. Tiny algorithms developed during years of research started breaking down the alien network's fundamental communication patterns. Humans had always been good at finding weaknesses in complex systems. The chamber around her pulsed with living energy. Biological structures moved like nervous systems, each movement a potential communication signal. The Queen watched, her massive consciousness trying to predict HFY's next move. HFY's first target was the communication junction points. These were the critical nodes where multiple communication pathways intersected. Disrupt these points, and the entire network would start to collapse. Her quantum disruptor began sending specific frequency signals, not to destroy, but to confuse. Each signal was a carefully designed mathematical sequence that would create maximum disruption with minimal direct damage. The first communication pathway collapsed silently. No explosion, no dramatic destruction, just a sudden break in the complex network. The hive's consciousness momentarily stuttered, like a computer experiencing a sudden memory glitch. Another pathway fell, then another. HFY moved with surgical precision, her movements calculated and deliberate. She wasn't fighting with traditional weapons, but with understanding, breaking the network from within its own communication structure. The Queen's consciousness began to fragment. Where once there was a unified, powerful intelligence, now small, isolated pockets of communication began to emerge. The hive was losing its fundamental cohesion. Memories of her training surfaced, years of studying alien communication systems, understanding how complex networks could be disrupted. This wasn't just a military mission, it was a demonstration of human adaptability. The chamber began to change. Biological structures that once moved with perfect coordination now seemed confused, disconnected. The Queen's control was slipping, her massive consciousness unable to maintain the complex network. HFY's neural interface detected something remarkable. The alien civilization's communication system was more vulnerable than anyone had anticipated. Humans had always been underestimated, a mistake many alien civilizations would soon regret. Each disruption was carefully planned. Not total destruction, but strategic interference. She was creating chaos within the system, breaking its ability to communicate and coordinate. The quantum disruptor continued its work. Frequency signals danced through the alien network, creating mathematical confusion that the biological system couldn't easily comprehend. It was a weapon of information, not physical destruction. Suddenly, large sections of the hive's communication network went dark, not destroyed, but disconnected. The Queen's consciousness began to fragment, losing its ability to coordinate and control. HFY understood the significance of this moment. This wasn't just a military mission. This was a demonstration of human technological and strategic superiority. A message to the galaxy that humans were not a species to be underestimated. The chamber around her continued to change. Biological structures that once moved with perfect coordination now seemed lost, confused. The complex network that had seemed invincible was now falling apart. Her mission was working. Each carefully calculated disruption was creating more damage than any traditional weapon could. She was defeating the alien civilization using its own complexity against itself. The Queen's consciousness made one final attempt to reassert control. But it was too late. The communication network was too damaged, too fragmented to mount an effective defense. HFY stood in the center of the chamber, watching as the alien civilization's central network collapsed around her, not through brute force but through understanding, strategy, and human ingenuity. The mission was almost complete. One more step, and humanity would send a message to the galaxy. We are not just survivors, we are masters of adaptation. The communication systems of the entire alien civilization began to crumble. HFY understood this was more than a mission. This was a message to every intelligent species watching. Her quantum transmitter activated. Not a weapon of destruction, but a beacon of communication. The frequencies would broadcast across multiple galactic communication channels, ensuring every listening civilization would receive humanity's declaration. The message was simple. Humans were not prey. They were not a species to be conquered or controlled. They were adaptable, strategic, and more dangerous than any traditional threat. Fragments of the alien network still tried to resist. Biological communication pathways attempted to reorganize, to find some way of maintaining their complex structure. But the damage was complete. The hive was broken. HFY's neural interface compiled the mission data. Years of research, months of preparation had led to this single moment. Her team might have died, but their sacrifice would not be forgotten. The Queen's massive consciousness began to fragment completely. Where once there was a unified intelligence, now only isolated pockets of communication remained. The complex network that had seemed invincible was now destroyed. Her transmitter began broadcasting. Mathematical sequences, communication patterns, strategic analysis, all designed to show the galaxy humanity's true potential. This wasn't just a military victory, but a demonstration of human technological superiority. Alien monitoring systems across multiple star systems would receive the transmission. They would understand that humans were not a simple species to be categorized or controlled. They were something entirely different. The chamber around her continued to change. Biological structures that once moved with perfect coordination now seemed lost, confused. The complex network was now nothing more than a collection of disconnected systems. HFY's suit recorded everything. Every moment, every communication pattern, every detail of the mission would become part of human strategic knowledge. Future missions would learn from her experiences. Suddenly, distant communication networks began to respond. Not attacks, but signals of confusion, of fear, of understanding. The message was clear. Humans were a species to be respected, not underestimated. Her quantum transmitter continued broadcasting. Mathematical sequences that demonstrated human strategic thinking, communication patterns that showed human adaptability, strategic analysis that revealed human potential. The mission was about more than destroying an alien civilization. It was about sending a message. Humanity would not be a passive species waiting to be conquered. They would fight, they would adapt, they would survive. Fragments of alien communication systems tried to understand what had happened. How could a single human have penetrated their most secure systems? How could one person destroy their entire communication network? HFY stood perfectly still. Her mission was complete. The quantum disruptor on her belt had done its work. The alien civilization's central network was destroyed, its communication systems fragmented. Distant star systems would receive the transmission. Alien civilizations would study the data, would try to understand how a single human could accomplish such a strategic victory. Her neural interface began compiling the final mission report. Not just a technical document, but a declaration. A message that would echo through galactic communication channels for generations. The chamber around her continued to collapse. Biological systems that once seemed invincible now looked like nothing more than complex machinery losing power. The hive was dead. HFY activated her emergency extraction protocol. Her mission was complete. She had done what no one thought possible. She had sent a message that would change how the galaxy viewed humanity. As her extraction system began to activate, she allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. Humans were not just another species. They were something more, something unexpected, something dangerous. The transmission continued, a mathematical symphony of human potential, broadcasting across the stars. A message that would be remembered. For generations, humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.